Now, this is a special one. This is a expert talk series recording that I did with PollyAnna Brown, who is an amazing public relations expert and a Business Insider contributor. And it's all about how you can leverage public relations to grow your brand awareness, grow your market share in the market. And we had some valuable tips that you could use to start growing your market share. So this is a good one. Grab a cup of tea, grab your notepad, and tune in, listen, and do the most. But remember, you gotta implement. Yeah, we're not all about the content, only you gotta implement. So I'll see you on the inside. This is Biz Talk with Tanya, brought to you by Wiz Digital Academy, a show for business athletes and online bosses who are ready to take up space in their industries. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Expert Talk series. Now, you are used to Expert Talk, the solo workshops for those that are not new in the community. But Expert Talk series is me interviewing some really interesting people, and we are gonna have a conversation around some interesting topics. So today we're going to be talking about something that I particularly like. And when I connected with PollyAnna, I was so happy over this because it's something that I have personally used, and I personally teach my clients to bootstrap it so that they can grow market share. So today we have a business insider contributor who's going to tell us all about how we can do this and how you could start doing this to grow market share, to grow your brand awareness so that you can actually get more clients. Because PR is one of those underrated things that can help you grow market share. However, we seem to think often that it's only for the big dogs and that smaller companies, we can't use that. And that is where most are wrong and are losing out on great opportunities. So on this note, I'm going to quickly allow PollyAnna to introduce herself before we get started on this. PollyAnna, welcome to Expert Talk.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's so great to be here with all of you. Hi, I'm PollyAnna, and I have been a journalist for the past 10 plus years. I also have pretty much a lifetime in entertainment experience, and I have been working with publicity for clients specifically over the past 6 years. It's been such a crazy roller coaster. And one of the most powerful things that I've found is helping people to become contributors on large media outlets and teaching them different ways to get regular recurring publicity so that they're in the media on average like once a week or more.
Oh, that's lovely. I love this because I recently became a contributor for Women on Top, and that was something fun that I really love doing. But let me quickly ask you, how did you get started, like becoming a contributor? Because everybody seems to think that it's quite daunting, it's impossible for the regular you and me. So how did you get started?
Oh my gosh, I got started when I was in my first master's degree program. I was getting a master's in psychology, and I sent in one of my papers to my professor, and she goes, Polly, your papers are really good. She's like, they could be articles. And I went, okay. And I had already been thinking about writing for magazines. I loved to write, and I thought it would be a really cool thing. So I immediately started pitching, and my pitching skills then versus now, way different. I did all of the wrong things in the beginning. But it was so amazing because within the first 90 days, I was published on 4 continents around the world and getting paid to do it. And so I went back to my professor and I was like, this is amazing. Thank you so much for the recommendation. And she goes, Polly, she's like, I meant academic journals. I was like, oh, whoops. So it was so funny. And it was such a comedy of errors that really worked out for me in the long run. And what I found was back then, there were a lot of publications that were really growing. And now the opportunity has only expanded. The difference is that the filter is really tight these days, which is a very good thing, because that means once you get a contributorship, then you are someone who is really well respected. They know that you had to kind of jump through hoops to get it. And the other piece with that is publications are switching their models. So publications used to be free, right? Until we go onto their websites and everything was available for free. But in order to really keep the cash flow going and to keep from going under because of how the publications have changed over the years, they've had to add paywalls. So what they're looking for is high value content from actual experts so that their audience is willing to pay for it. And so the opportunity is larger than ever before. And editors are really looking for people that they can have a relationship with to publish regularly. I just had a thing go live on Business Insider earlier this week. It was Monday or Tuesday. And then I just got a message literally before hopping on here from another editor at Insider. And she was like, your story is going live tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. I was like, okay. So you can get published over and over again, which is really cool.
You know, this is so interesting because one of the things that a lot of people don't know about me is that when I left corporate, my first side gig, like the side hustle I went into was writing. I was like, when I asked myself, what can you do? How do you get out of corporate rat and start a business, even if it's just something extra? And it was writing. And I started content writing and eventually became a copywriter. And one of the most interesting things, people seem to think that you need a journalism degree to write. I have never been to journalism school, I promise you. And I think that is what has often led to people having a little bit of resistance to writing. And when I even tell my clients that you can get paid by publications to grow your brand, people are shocked. Yes, you can get paid by publications to write for them, grow your brand awareness, and get your business in front of high net worth people. And that is the most shocking thing. So what have you found to be the resistance from entrepreneurs, from C-suite people that has led to them resisting actually contributing to publications?
I think that there are a few things. So we'll kind of break it down because it's different at each level of business too. So the first thing is sometimes people think that they have to invest a lot of time or that they have to invest a lot of energy into it. And depending on where you are in your business, that can be true. It can also not be true. So for example, my VIP clients, I write for them. I ghostwrite their articles. And so we jump on and I get all of their genius, all of their stuff. It's all of their own content. And then I just do the legwork for them and it gets turned in. So that's really helpful for them, but they don't always know that that's an option. And likewise, sometimes when they do, they don't realize that you have to know how to write for publications because it's different than writing for publications, different than copywriting, right? It's not all created equal.
It's not. Yeah,
no.
Definitely not.
So there's a time aspect, and then there is also awesome. The other things is a lot of times people will put their own barriers in place. I don't have a cool story, or I don't have the right expertise, or I don't have what they're looking for, right? And they'll put these barriers up that aren't necessarily accurate. And so what happens with that is they will put resistance in that doesn't need to be there. So, and the other main thing is sometimes they think that there is higher value in features and interviews, and there's not. So the difference between contributorship and features and interviews is with features and interviews, you don't always get a link and they're not always SEO driven the way that you need them to be, right? And so there can be some issues there. But when you're a contributor, then you are pitching articles that are in your wheelhouse, that are in your genius, or connecting with other people to interview who are in that vein. So now you're getting the SEO that you need to come up in the keywords that your audience is searching, which is huge.
Exactly.
So right? It's not always about your name, but it's in the keywords that they're searching. So that's really huge. And you can see that if you type how to start a business into Google, for example, you're probably going to get articles from Entrepreneur and Forbes and from other places that come back to like 2014, 2011 that are still getting hits. So they're still getting traffic years and years later. The other thing that really puts up a lot of resistance to this is people don't know it's an option. And so they really think that they have to pay for it in some way. So for example, when I had my Business Insider article go live earlier this week, I had people in my inbox saying, how much for a story? I want you to cover my story. How much for a story? Right. And
wow,
that's not how that works. And so right, I had to share like, actually that's illegal. that's not how we do it. And, I have to kind of explain the way the FTC works and the way that journalism works. And so there's a lot of misinformation out there, specifically from overnight publicity agencies that don't have proper training and think of it as it's totally okay because they don't have an ethical issue with it and they don't know the law. And so I always have to kind of do that education of that's actually not how it's done. When it's a real story feature interview about you, you will never have to pay if it's legitimate. So there's a big discrepancy there too.
Ooh, I know all about that because I remember there was a time I got pitched a couple of times about paying and exorbitant amounts to be featured in Forbes, to be featured in different magazines. And I told myself, this isn't a proper feature. So definitely thank you for bringing that up because a lot of people do not know that and they think they have to pay to get published or to pay to get their thought leadership published. One of the things that I noticed when I published the event on LinkedIn, a lot of the interest came from C-suite people, which was quite interesting because I primarily saw that this event would interest mostly entrepreneurs. So just because I know that a few of them are in different time zones, I need to ask this question because it probably would come up. How can C-suites working for corporate leverage public relations to grow their business, the business of for the company's brand where they are working at?
Absolutely. So there are two things with that. If you notice, I like multi-layer things. So the first part of that is that a lot of people working in corporate do have side hustles. And so they're looking for easier ways to grow that side hustle, even if they never plan on leaving corporate. And so there are great opportunities in that. If you have any thought leadership at all to your career, to your genius, or to your business, you can get publicity. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there are a lot of C-suite people who are experts in their fields. And so let's just say hypothetically, your company, you're the CEO. Let's just say you're the CEO or you're the CFO, and you know that your company is up for a Series A of funding, right? If you get in the media, you're going to be able to increase the demand for that investment, right? You're going to be able to increase the value of the company. So a lot of corporate and a lot of startups will actually really go after publicity before they raise money, which is huge. And so anytime you are in C-suite and you're raising your own personal brand, because in today's world, if you're a human, you have a personal brand, right? If you're a human and you're on social media, you have a personal brand, whether you have a
You
business or
have
not.
a personal brand, whether you like it or not, you have.
Absolutely. And so with that, being able to show up in publicity and in publications, owning your genius only elevates everything that you touch. So you elevate your personal brand, make yourself more competitive if you're looking for other situations and other jobs to go to. And likewise, any company that you are a part of or a team of, you have now elevated that company based on the press that you've gotten. So it's really beneficial all around.
So true, because I've realized that of late, and I've seen, I think that I forget the name of the company that recently passed the 150 million mark, and one of the CEO was on a podcast, and he said that he encourages his employees to develop their personal brands because in the long run it also helps the company, and that is such an interesting point. Now we're gonna get into the nitty gritty because I know that some people be out there thinking, now Tanya, like we're trying to get the tea. So PollyAnna, how does one start with PR?
So it depends on what your skill set is. So not everyone's a great writer. And if you're not a great writer, you have two options: hire a ghostwriter, right? Which we have ghostwriting in-house for our clients because that's part of what I do. But the other thing is, if you don't hire a ghostwriter, then you have to be really good at it. Like that's those are the options as far as writing. But outside that, there are so many opportunities. You can do podcasts, you can do speaking gigs, right? You can do the interviews and features. There are other opportunities available to you. You have to know your strengths and your resources. So once you have a good calibration to which thing you want to do, now you have to figure out what are your hooks. And the hook is the number one thing that you need. So your pitch has to be on point. If your pitch is not on point, people aren't going to be interested. So you have to think about not what's interesting to you about your story, what's interesting to the audience about your story. And I'll give you a couple quick rundowns. So a lot of people will think I've made a shit ton of money in a little bit of time, right? So I'm running a 6-figure business and I made a 6-figure business in 2 years. Or I was homeless and now I'm a millionaire. Can those hooks work? Yes, but they're a little played out. They're a little run of the mill now because more than any time in history, we've got more millionaires and more billionaires. So it's
so true,
right? We're coming into the era where like that story is common, which thank goodness it's becoming common. So you need to think about other ways to differentiate your hook. So for example, if you had a job that is known to not make a lot of money and then you left it and you had something else, so like let's say teacher with Crohn's disease quits education and goes all in on copywriting business and creates $200,000 in revenue in 12 months. That's a different kind of hook because we have different elements at play.
Because I realized that there's a lady that I connected with. She's a business coach over on Instagram. And the most interesting part of her story was that she went from being a waitress to having a 7-figure coaching business in 18 months. And that was the hook that actually got me to pay attention to her. Oh, okay, now this is interesting. And even when I shared my own story, I didn't share my story from the point that, I'm a 6-figure coach, whatever. I actually shared the story of a girl that had that was a single mother when she was a teenager and had issues with imposter syndrome, and then the journey to building that. And ironically, that has connected to so many people. And opened a lot of PR opportunities in terms of contributing, in terms of podcast interviews. And it's not really the interest is when I get approached, it's not always like, okay, how did you build a business? It's primarily, how did you do this because of? So definitely the angle at which people need to approach PR is different, and I'm definitely in agreement there. But now, how does one start pitching? I know how to pitch at this point, but your girl did not always know that, right?
Yeah.
And just like you, I made a ton of mistakes. So, for those listening, for those watching, for those that are going to catch the replay, how do they start pitching, and who do they pitch? Should they pitch folks? Should they pitch Business Insider? Who? Where do they start? I think those will be the biggest questions that people would have.
So the first thing is, because people automatically think once I start getting publicity, I want to go to the national outlets right away. You can. I have found that people make the most money and get the most clients off of niche publications, not so much the national ones. And that is because the niche publications have active, engaged audiences that are hyper focused on the solutions you provide. That's what they're going there for. So that creates a different thing in the business and different types of results. Now, do we still want to go after the national ones? Of course we do, right? But there are different reasons and different ways we go there and all of that kind of stuff. And it really just depends on the individual business. So here's what you want to look at. You want to look at, who's my audience, first of all. Where are they? And not just like, where are they in general, right? Because I read Cosmo, but I don't read it for business. That's not what I'm going there for, right? So if I found a business article in Cosmo, I'd go, oh, it's kind of out of place, or, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't even be in the frame of mind to follow up with anything, right? So you want to be in the right spaces. So that's the first thing. And in order to do that, you have to let go of this idea of logo hunting and really go all in on quality of audience. Once you have that, then you have to look at, what is it that that outlet is looking for? What is it that would serve their audience? You need to come from a place of support instead of a place of promotion. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they pitch, is they think it's about their business, or they think the story is about their product, and very rarely is it. Now, there is an exception for physical products, right? Because physical products do get their own stories. Service-based products don't. So you can't say, I've got this really cool copywriting course and I want an article on it. That's not going to fly. So you want to be very clear, right? I don't pull punches. So
you definitely are pulling. You are not even trying to sugarcoat it.
No. We don't have time for that. So you want to make sure that you're coming from that place of support and value, because that is going to make the biggest difference. It's going to create a great relationship with the outlet, and it's going to separate yourself from all the other pitches that they get, right? So if you want to be in the I'm so awesome camp, then you can, but it doesn't work as well as, here's the value that I can provide your audience. Here's what I see that, they need, and how I can contribute to the conversation you're having. Those are night and day pitches. Wow. Right?
Definitely different pitches. Definitely different pitches. And because I have a podcast, I kind of understand what editors go through, because I receive some pitches and I'm like, did you read the brief on my audience, on who I serve? It's a lot of times it's always me, and I don't see how this works for me. Or maybe I see something and I get into maybe a connect call, and the person will just talk about themselves and really not try to get to know me or my audience. So I can definitely understand where editors come from, because even nowadays, I turn away 80 to 90% of pictures I receive because they are not taking the time to get to know me, to get to know my audience, who I serve, what I'm about. So, and these are basic things. Quick search on Google, you can find a podcast, or quick search, you find a podcast, you read one of my articles, you kind of get a sense of who I am. And then you have something to pitch. Because one of the things is, when I come to think of it, a lot of the people that I've checked out and actually agreed to interview are people that took the time to know the basics of who I am, who I serve, and my vibe. And these are public knowledge. I have articles, I have podcast episodes. A lot of people don't take the time. And I feel that is one of the reasons why a lot of people do not get PR. I don't know, what is your take on that?
So it's really different, because you have to think about it as being a human, right? And we think in terms of being a business owner, and you really have to think about it in terms of being a human, because as a business owner, we're taught to promote all the time. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with promotion. There's nothing wrong with sales. There is no sales shame here. We're all about it. The difference is when you're going for a publication, it's value driven. Now, at the same time, they're happy to give you a link. They're happy to give you a byline. They are happy to support you and give you the opportunity to get in front of their audience over and over and over again. You can't get that high quality of leads and attention without paying a ton of money in ads. So if you want that high quality audience, you better treat them like the red carpet people that they are. And so that means, trying to think of another way to explain it, but I can't. So forgive me for the thing. Pitch number one, where it's promotional, right? That's like someone coming to your door and going, hey, you're cute, let's jump in bed, right? It's like, wait a second, excuse me. And they want to do it with a couple of your friends too, right? Because you have the audience, right? It's, excuse me, no. No.
Definitely, that's a shocker. Like, where did that come from?
Right? Whereas this pitch that is focused on the value and is focused on supporting and think about it like a community. These editors are protecting their audience. They're making sure that all the information that gets through helps them so that they come back again and again, trusting this source. So if you want to be in the trusted network, you have to prove yourself. And so there's this interesting mindset that you have to have. One, that you are of immense value, and you are of immense value. And what you have to give is so potent, and they need it and they want it. And you have to come from the space of, it is an honor to be accepted. If you come from the egotistical standpoint of, oh my gosh, they should, worship the ground I walk on, they'd be so lucky to have me, in an arrogant way, that's not going to work. They're not going to take you. It's really about saying, I want to be a contributing member of this particular community. This is how I can show up. This is how I can support. And in that support, I now have a ton of traffic that trusts me, that believes in me, right? That knows that I can help them. And that is how you create that rapport. So the pitch needs to be them focused, not you focused. You provide the story and the genius and showcase what you're bringing to the table. And then you earn the right to talk about you.
This is interesting because was it today or yesterday? I just turned down a JV opportunity because of the approach. Because the first email they sent, obviously cold email, I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting. And the next minute it was, how many of your followers, how many followers do you have? How many this, how many this? And I was like, this is not about me and my audience. This is primarily about how you can benefit of what I have built. And building an audience, whether small or big, is no easy task. So when you approach people, it should always be from a mutually beneficial place. Whew. Guys, I hope you got it. And now what we're going to do, PollyAnna, I know that you have some amazing things you're currently working on in terms of PR. So could you tell us a little bit more about that and how people can get in touch with you before we close off?
Absolutely. So somewhere around here, there will be some way to connect with me. I have a milkshake link, which has all of my freebies. I have a ton of free resources that anyone can use, anything from messaging to publicity that are really supportive. So definitely check out all of those links. And the things that I'm working on as far as working with me is I do have a few spots open for one-to-one. They're only open for a limited amount of time. And we are just doing the publicity for you. Super easy. But if you're interested in doing it for yourself, we also have a course that people can take to bring it in-house and really do it for themselves on the regular. So that's really powerful too. So those are the ways to get a hold of me.
Fantastic. I know that PollyAnna is on Facebook, she's on Instagram, she's on LinkedIn, and wherever you watch this, or if you watch it on YouTube or you listen to it on the podcast, I'll have it linked in the description box or in the show notes so you can get in touch with her. And I'm definitely just reaffirming what PollyAnna just said here. I've personally used PR to build my brand, and I bootstrapped it. So if I can do it, and I often say it, if I can do it from Johannesburg, South Africa, trust me, you have all the same opportunities. It is just your willingness to put yourself out there. Be willing to hear no's, to hear crickets, because you are going to hear those. You are going to send pitches that are going to get ignored. You are going to have to follow up on some speeches a couple of times before you actually get a response from people. So you gotta develop thick skin if you want to build a business, a brand. Either way, develop thick skin and don't let the no's affect you and feel like no, because they said no to you, it means you are not good enough. You are perfectly good enough. You are valuable, and your value cannot be amounted to anything. So getting a no for a pitch means maybe try a different angle. I've done that. So trust me, if you get a no, okay, rework your pitch, try a different angle. You're more likely to succeed in that manner as well. So on this note, thank you for those that have listened, watched. If you are listening to this, leave a review on Apple Podcast. Leave comments if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you are listening to it on Spotify or any other podcast, do something. Review, rate the podcast. Don't leave your girl hanging. Come on. We're bringing the content. So give me something. I hope you got me. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And I will see you in the next one. Oh my gosh, and we have people let me admit somebody here because he wanted to be here, and we're just wrapping up. Hello, Ibrahima. We are just wrapping up. We are just wrapping up the interview. Hello. If you have a question to ask PollyAnna, feel free to ask your question as we just finished the interview, and I will have the replay sent to you. I see you connecting to audio. Hello? Hello? All right, so I'll have the replay over to you. Oh my gosh, everybody's coming this late. So I'll have the replay over to you guys in between early next week, and I will also send you the link to PollyAnna's profile. I'll send you the link to PollyAnna's profile as well as the link to the interview so that you can get your questions answered, because we are wrapping up. The sessions are short, but I will try to figure out a way to have longer sessions in the future because clearly there's a need for it. So on this note, I'll see you in the next session of Expert Series, and we'll bring you another interesting expert. So stay in touch. And oh, Ibrahim, I see tu es arrivé, but we are wrapping up. So I'll send you the replay soon, and I'll also send you PollyAnna's profile details so you can get in touch with her after you've watched. And obviously, if you have questions, because I understand things happen, so you can get your questions answered. It's a valuable interview. So on this note, guys, I will see you in the next one, and keep your eyes on my profile. I'm gonna work out this expert series thing. This was the first, and let's see, maybe we have to work on the time thing. All right, guys, see you and bye-bye.